Marcus Chun had never imagined that fixing a broken water recycler on a mining station Kepler 442b would change the course of galactic history. The station floated in the cold darkness between two gas giants, harvesting rare minerals from asteroid fields that drifted like ancient graveyards through space. The work was honest but boring. Every day, Marcus would wake up in his tiny quarters, grab a cup of synthetic coffee, and head to the maintenance bay. His hands were permanently stained with hydraulic fluid and metal shavings. Other humans on the station called him Wrench because he could fix anything mechanical. Marcus didn't mind the nickname. Growing up on Earth's overcrowded cities had taught him that survival meant being useful. When the Galactic Trade Confederation offered jobs on distant mining stations, he jumped at the chance. The pay was decent, and more importantly, it was far from the pollution and chaos of home. The station housed about 300 beings from 12 different species. Most were workers like Marcus, but some held administrative positions. The Zenthri ran most operations with their 4 arms and analytical minds. The Vorkin handled security with their massive frames and natural armor. Everyone had their place in the cosmic economy. Marcus preferred working alone. He understood machines better than people, and machines didn't judge him for being human. In the greater galaxy, humans were considered a minor species. They had joined the galactic community only 50 years ago, and most aliens still saw them as primitive newcomers. The morning everything changed started like any other. Marcus received a work order to repair a malfunctioning water recycler in the diplomatic section. This area of the station was usually off-limits to maintenance staff, but emergency repairs took priority over protocol. He grabbed his toolbox and headed through corridors he rarely visited. The diplomatic section was cleaner and more luxurious than the worker levels. Walls displayed holographic art from various worlds, and the air smelled of exotic flowers instead of industrial lubricants. Marcus found a malfunctioning recycler in a service corridor behind the main diplomatic suites. The machine was making grinding noises and leaking coolant onto the floor. He began his standard diagnostic routine, checking power connections and fluid lines. The work required him to crawl partially inside the machine's access panel. With his head buried in cables and circuits, Marcus didn't hear the soft footsteps approaching down the corridor. He was focused on tracing a damaged power coupling when a voice spoke behind him. "Excuse me, but what are you doing here?" The voice was melodious and carried an accent Marcus couldn't identify. He backed out of the machine and turned around, expecting to see one of the Zenthri administrators. Instead, he found himself looking at the most beautiful being he had ever seen. She stood about 6 feet tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Her hair was silver white and moved as if underwater, defying the station's artificial gravity. Large violet eyes regarded him with curiosity and something that might have been concern. Marcus recognized her species immediately, though he had never seen one in person. She was Etherian, one of the galaxy's most advanced and reclusive races. Etherians rarely left their home systems, and when they did, it was usually for matters of critical importance. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, climbing to his feet and brushing coolant off his work coveralls. "I'm here to fix this recycler. Got a work order this morning." The Etherian woman tilted her head slightly, studying his face with an intensity that made Marcus uncomfortable. Her violet eyes seemed to see right through him, as if she was reading something written in his soul. "You are human," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am. Marcus Chun, Maintenance Division." He held up his ID badge, though he doubted she cared about his credentials. Something strange happened then. The Etherian woman's eyes widened, and she took a half-step backward. Her graceful composure cracked for just a moment, revealing what looked like shock or even fear. She stared at Marcus as if he had just told her the impossible. "That cannot be," she whispered, so quietly Marcus almost missed it. "Mom, is everything all right?" The woman seemed to gather herself, straightening to her full height. When she spoke again, her voice was controlled, but Marcus could hear tension underneath. What is your full name, human? Marcus Chun. Look, if I'm not supposed to be here, I can come back later. The recycler's not critical, just making some noise, and show me your hands. The request was so unexpected that Marcus blinked. I'm sorry. Your hands. Show them to me. Confused, but not wanting to cause trouble, Marcus held up his hands palm forward. They were calloused and stained from years of mechanical work, with a thin scar across his left knuckle from a childhood accident. The Etherian woman stepped closer, her eyes fixed on Marcus's palms with laser-like focus. She raised her own hand as if to touch his, then stopped herself. Her breathing had quickened, and that shimmer in her skin seemed brighter. This is impossible, she said again, backing away. You should not exist. Your bloodline was lost centuries ago. Lady, I think you've got me confused with someone else. I'm just a maintenance worker. My family's been on Earth for generations. Nothing special about us. But even as Marcus spoke, he felt a strange resonance in the air around the woman. It was like standing near a powerful electrical field, making his skin tingle and his hair stand on end. He had never experienced anything like it. The Etherian woman seemed to wrestle with some internal decision. Finally, she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. My name is Princess Lyralii of the 7th Etherian House. I am here on a diplomatic mission of the utmost importance. She paused, looking around the corridor as if checking for observers. And you, Marcus Chun, may be the key to preventing a war that would consume half the galaxy. Marcus felt his mouth go dry. I think there's been some kind of mistake. I don't know anything about wars or diplomacy. I fix machines. There is no mistake, Princess Lyralii said firmly. The markings on your palms, the resonance I sense from you, even the way you carry yourself, it all matches the ancient descriptions. She took a deep breath. You carry the bloodline of the lost navigators. The what now? It is a long story, and this is not the place to tell it. But know this, your ancestors were among the most revered beings in galactic history. They were the ones who first mapped the deep currents of space, who taught other species how to travel between the stars safely. Marcus shook his head. That's impossible. Humans only developed space travel 75 years ago. We're newcomers to all this. That is what the galaxy believes, yes. But the truth is far more complex. Princess Lyralii glanced around the corridor again, then fixed Marcus with her intense violet gaze. The lost navigators were human, Marcus. And if the ancient texts are correct, their bloodline carries a power that could tip the balance in the coming conflict. Before Marcus could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the main corridor. Princess Lyralii's expression shifted to alarm. They have found us, she said urgently. Listen carefully. There are forces in this galaxy who would kill to possess what flows in your veins. They cannot know what I have discovered. Not yet. Who would want to kill me? I am no Obedi. That is no longer true. The footsteps were getting closer, accompanied by the distinctive sound of Vorkan security boots. Meet me in Observatory Deck 7 tonight at 2100 hours. Tell no one of this conversation. Wait, I don't understand any of this. But Princess Lyralii was already walking away, her movements once again perfectly controlled and regal. By the time the Vorkan security team rounded the corner, she appeared to be simply passing through the service corridor on routine business. Human, growled the lead Vorkan, a massive creature whose natural armor plates were decorated with security insignia. You're not authorized to be in this section during diplomatic visits. Emergency repair, Marcus said, holding up his work order with hands that trembled slightly. Water recycler malfunction. The Vorkan examined the order with suspicious eyes, then grunted. Complete your work and leave immediately. Yes, sir. As the security team moved past, Marcus caught Princess Lyralii's eye for just a moment. She gave him the slightest nod, then disappeared around a corner with her escort. Marcus turned back to the recycler, but his hands were shaking too badly to work effectively. Lost navigators? Ancient bloodlines? Wars that could consume half the galaxy? None of it made sense. He forced himself to focus on the repair. The damaged power coupling was easy enough to replace, and within 30 minutes, the recycler was running smoothly again. But as he packed up his tools, Marcus's mind kept returning to Princess Lyreliai's words. The way she had looked at his hands, as if she was seeing something invisible to everyone else. The strange tingling sensation he had felt in her presence. And, most disturbing of all, the absolute certainty in her voice when she said he shouldn't exist. Marcus finished his work and returned to the maintenance bay, but he couldn't concentrate on his remaining assignments. His supervisor, a gruff Zenthari named Kozek, noticed his distraction. "Chun, your efficiency rating has dropped 12% this afternoon. Are you experiencing malfunction?" "No, sir. Just tired." Kozek's 4 eyes studied Marcus with the analytical precision his species was famous for. "You appear to be processing elevated stress indicators. Perhaps you require recalibration at the medical bay." "I'm fine, really. Just need some rest." The Zenthari seemed unconvinced but returned to his own work. Marcus managed to get through the rest of his shift without further incident, though he found himself jumping at shadows and analyzing every casual glance from his coworkers. That evening, Marcus sat in his quarters staring at his palms. He had looked at his hands thousands of times throughout his life, but now he tried to see them through Princess Lyreliai's eyes. The lines and creases looked perfectly normal to him, the calluses and scars telling the story of his working life. But maybe there was something else, something he had never noticed. Marcus held his hands up to the light, turning them this way and that. Was it a faint pattern in the palm lines? A symmetry that seemed almost too perfect to be natural? He shook his head, feeling foolish. It was probably just his imagination, influenced by the princess's strange words. But as 2,100 hours approached, Marcus found himself unable to ignore the appointment. Observatory Deck 7 was located in one of the station's outer rings, offering a view of the asteroid fields and the distant gas giants. During the day shift, it was popular with off-duty workers who enjoyed watching the mining ships navigate between the floating rocks. But at night, it was usually empty. Marcus arrived a few minutes early, his stomach tight with nervous energy. The observatory was dark except for the glow of distant stars and the running lights of mining vessels. He had almost convinced himself that Princess Lyreliai wouldn't show when a voice spoke from the shadows. "You came." She stepped into the starlight, and Marcus was struck again by her otherworldly beauty. In the dim light, her skin's inner glow was more pronounced, and her silver hair moved with that same impossible grace. "I had to," Marcus said. "What you told me today, I can't get it out of my head." "That is understandable. You have lived your entire life believing you were ordinary, and now you discover that your very existence challenges the accepted history of the galaxy." Princess Lyreliai moved to one of the observatory windows, gazing out at the stars. "Tell me about your family, Marcus. What do you know of your ancestry?" "Not much. My parents died in an industrial accident when I was 12. My grandfather raised me, but he passed away 5 years ago." Marcus joined her at the window. "He used to tell stories about our family, but I always thought they were just stories." "What kind of stories?" Marcus felt uncomfortable talking about his grandfather's tales. They had always seemed like fantasy, the imaginings of an old man who spent too much time alone. But now, with Princess Lyreliai's intense attention, they took on new significance. He said our family used to be travelers, not just on Earth, but other places. He claimed we had a gift for finding safe paths through dangerous territory. Marcus paused. He also said we were guardians of something important, but he never told me what. Princess Lyreliai turned from the window, her violet eyes bright with excitement. "Did he ever mention anything about the deep current or the star roads?" The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His grandfather had used those exact terms, usually late at night when he thought Marcus was asleep. The old man would sit by the window, staring at the stars, and whisper about the deep current that flowed between worlds. How could you know about that? Because those terms appear in the most ancient Etherian texts, the ones that describe the lost navigators. Princess Lyraliai's voice was filled with wonder. Your grandfather was trying to preserve the old knowledge, even if he didn't fully understand it himself. She reached into a fold of her robes and withdrew a small device that projected a holographic display. The image showed what appeared to be a three-dimensional map of space, but not like any star chart Marcus had ever seen. Instead of showing the positions of stars and planets, it depicted flowing currents of energy that connected distant points in the galaxy. This is a navigator's chart, Princess Lyraliai explained. It shows the deep current, the underlying energy network that binds all space together. The lost navigators were the first to perceive these currents and learn to ride them safely between stars. Marcus studied the holographic display, and something strange happened. The flowing patterns began to make sense to him, as if he was remembering rather than learning. He could see how the currents intersected, where they were strongest, and, most importantly, where they were about to change. The northern spiral is going to shift, he said without thinking. In about 3 days, the current will reverse direction. Princess Lyraliai stared at him in amazement. Yes, our best astronavigators predicted that shift would occur in 72 hours. She deactivated the hologram. Marcus, you just read a navigator's chart on first sight. That should be impossible for someone without training. I don't understand how I knew that. It is in your blood, your genetic memory. The lost navigators didn't just use technology to read the deep current. They could sense it directly, feel its rhythm in their bodies. Princess Lyraliai placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. That ability was thought to be extinct for over 300 years. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the implications. Why does this matter? What's this about a war? Princess Lyraliai's expression grew serious. The galaxy is more fragile than most beings realize. For the past century, we have enjoyed relative peace, but that peace is maintained by a careful balance of power between the major species. She activated another holographic display, this one showing political boundaries across known space. The hegemony controls the industrial core worlds. The Federation manages the outer colonies. The Trade Confederation maintains the shipping lanes. And species like mine, the Etherians, serve as neutral mediators. That sounds stable enough. It was until recently. 3 months ago, our deep space monitors detected something unprecedented. The deep current itself is becoming unstable. Ancient pathways are collapsing. New ones are forming randomly. And the energy flows that allow faster-than-light travel are becoming unpredictable. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. What's causing it? We don't know. But the effects are already beginning to show. Trade routes are becoming unreliable. Some ships have been lost entirely, appearing hundreds of light years from their intended destinations. Others have emerged from hyperspace damaged by energy surges they couldn't avoid. Princess Lyraliai manipulated the display, showing areas where the current flows appeared chaotic and broken. If this continues, interstellar civilization will collapse within 50 years. Worlds will be cut off from each other, unable to trade or communicate. The great galactic community will fracture into isolated islands of species. But surely someone can fix this? The Etherians are advanced, and the other major powers must have scientists. We have tried everything we know. Our best minds have been working on the problem since it was discovered. But none of us truly understand the deep current the way the lost navigators did. Princess Lyraliai looked directly into Marcus's eyes. We can detect the currents, measure them, even predict some of their behavior. But we cannot feel them, cannot sense the deeper patterns that govern their flow. Marcus began to understand the implications. You think I might be able to sense something you can't? I believe you already have. When you predicted the northern spiral shift, you were reading patterns our instruments could barely detect. With proper training, you might be able to perceive what is causing the instability. The weight of responsibility settled on Marcus like a physical burden. He was just a maintenance worker, someone who fixed broken machines and tried to stay out of trouble. The idea that he might hold the key to preventing galactic collapse was terrifying. What if I can't do it? What if I'm not really what you think I am? Then we will face the collapse as best we can, Princess Lyralii said simply. But if there's even a chance that your abilities can help us understand the deep current's instability, we must try. Before Marcus could respond, an alarm began sounding throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the observatory in red, and the intercom crackled to life. All personnel to emergency stations. Unidentified vessels approaching from the outer system. This is not a drill. Princess Lyralii's face went pale. They have found us. Who has found us? There are forces in the galaxy who would prefer to see interstellar civilization collapse rather than allow the lost navigator bloodline to return to prominence. She grabbed Marcus's arm. We must leave now. They rushed from the observatory, joining the streams of beings heading to emergency positions throughout the station. But instead of following the crowd to the shelter areas, Princess Lyralii led Marcus toward the docking bays. Where are we going? My ship is in Bay 12. If we can reach it before the attackers dock, we might escape. They ran through corridors filled with panicking civilians and rushing security personnel. Marcus could hear the station's defensive weapons powering up, their deep hum vibrating through the hull. Through the viewports, he caught glimpses of sleek, dark ships emerging from the asteroid field like predators from the shadows. What do they want? Marcus called out as they ran. You. Princess Lyralii replied without slowing down. Or more precisely, they want to ensure that the lost navigator bloodline remains extinct. They reached docking bay 12 just as the first explosions rocked the station. Princess Lyralii's ship was elegant and streamlined, built for speed rather than combat. As they boarded, Marcus could see through the bay's transparent walls that the attacking vessels had begun docking at multiple points around the station. Who are these people? The Shadow Collective, Princess Lyralii said as she powered up her ship's engines. They have existed in secret for centuries, manipulating galactic politics from behind the scenes. They profit from conflict and instability, and the current crisis serves their purposes perfectly. The ship lifted off just as armed figures in dark armor began cutting through the docking bay doors. Marcus caught a glimpse of their faces through the viewport. They weren't entirely human, but they weren't any alien species he recognized either. Their features were sharp and angular, with eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. What species are they? No one knows for certain. They may be an ancient offshoot of one of the founding races, or something else entirely. What matters is that they view the return of the Navigator bloodline as a direct threat to their plans. Princess Lyralii's ship cleared the station just as a massive explosion tore through the diplomatic section. Marcus watched in horror as the place where he had worked for 3 years was consumed by fire and twisted metal. The other workers, my friends, I am Sore Marcus. The Shadow Collective does not leave witnesses. Princess Lyralii's voice was gentle but firm. Your old life is over. From this moment forward, you are either the galaxy's salvation or its most wanted fugitive. As they accelerated away from the dying station, Marcus stared at his reflection in the ship's window. The face looking back at him was the same one he had seen in mirrors his entire life, but now he knew it carried the legacy of an ancient bloodline and the weight of an entire galaxy's future. Behind them, the mining station continued to burn, its emergency beacons calling uselessly into the void. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the deep current continued its slow, inexorable collapse toward chaos. Marcus pressed his palm against the window and felt that strange tingling sensation again, stronger now. For just a moment, he could sense something vast and flowing in the space around them, like invisible rivers carrying the ship toward an uncertain destiny. The lost Navigator bloodline had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same Princess Lyralii's ship, the Star Whisperer, was unlike any vessel Marcus had ever been aboard. The corridors seemed to pulse with a soft, organic light, and the walls felt warm to the touch, as if the ship itself were alive. Everything was curved and flowing, with no harsh angles or mechanical joints visible. "It's grown from living crystal," Princess Lyralii explained as she led him to a guest cabin. "Etherian ships are not built in the traditional sense. They are cultivated over decades, each one unique and bonded to its primary pilot." Marcus ran his hand along the smooth wall, feeling a subtle vibration beneath his palm. "It feels like it's breathing. In a way, it is. The ship senses our emotional states and adjusts its environment accordingly. Right now, it can feel your confusion and fear, so it is trying to create a calming atmosphere." The guest cabin was small but comfortable, with a bed that seemed to be carved from a single piece of pale blue crystal. A viewport showed the stars streaming past as they traveled through hyperspace, their light creating beautiful patterns that shifted and flowed like living art. "Where are we going?" Marcus asked. "Ethereal Prime, my home world. It is one of the most heavily defended systems in the galaxy, and the only place where you will be truly safe while we work to understand your abilities." Princess Lyralii paused at the doorway. "The journey will take 3 days. I suggest you use that time to rest and prepare yourself. Once we arrive, your training will begin immediately." "What kind of training?" "You must learn to consciously access the navigator abilities that lie dormant in your bloodline. The techniques were lost when your ancestors disappeared, but we have preserved fragments of their teaching methods in our ancient archives." After she left, Marcus sat on the crystal bed and tried to process everything that had happened. Less than 24 hours ago, he had been a simple maintenance worker with no concerns beyond fixing broken machinery. Now he was supposedly the last hope for preventing galactic civilization from collapsing. He thought about his grandfather's stories, the ones he had always dismissed as fantasy. The old man had spoken of their family's duty to protect the Great Flowing, and had insisted that Marcus would someday understand his true purpose. At the time, it had seemed like the ramblings of someone who spent too much time alone with his memories. But now those memories took on new significance. Marcus remembered the way his grandfather would sometimes stop mid-sentence while walking, as if he was listening to something only he could hear. The old man had an uncanny ability to predict weather patterns and had never once been caught in a storm. He could find his way through the most confusing city streets without ever consulting a map. Marcus had inherited some of those abilities, though he had never thought much about them. He had always been good at finding efficient routes through complex systems, whether they were city streets or mechanical assemblies. He could sense when machinery was about to fail, often days before any obvious signs appeared. And sometimes late at night, he felt like he could sense movement in the space around him, as if invisible currents were flowing past his window. He pulled up the ship's information system and began researching what little public information existed about the lost navigators. Most sources dismissed them as mythology, stories told by primitive cultures to explain phenomena they didn't understand. But a few academic papers took a different view. According to these sources, the lost navigators had been a human subspecies that possessed an innate ability to sense gravitational fields and electromagnetic currents. They had emerged during humanity's early space exploration period and had been instrumental in mapping the first interstellar trade routes. But then, approximately 300 years ago, they had vanished without explanation. Some theories suggested they had been wiped out by a plague. Others proposed they had deliberately isolated themselves from galactic society. A few fringe researchers claimed they had transcended physical existence entirely. None of the theories explained why their abilities had been so crucial to early space travel, or why their disappearance coincided with a period of increased navigation hazards that lasted for nearly a century. Marcus was deep in his research when an alert chimed through the ship. Princess Lyralii's voice followed immediately. "Marcus, please come to the bridge. We have a problem." He found her standing before a holographic display that showed their ship's position relative to nearby star systems. Red warning indicators pulsed around several areas, and their course line was deviating from its original path. What's happening? The deep current instability is worse than we realized. 3 major navigation routes have collapsed in the past 6 hours, and we've had to reroute twice to avoid dangerous fluctuations. Princess Lyralii manipulated the display, showing the chaotic energy patterns surrounding their ship. At this rate, it will take us 6 days to reach Ethereal Prime, assuming we can find a stable route at all. Marcus studied the holographic currents and again felt that strange sensation of recognition. The flowing patterns seemed to speak to him in a language he didn't consciously understand, but somehow felt familiar. "There," he said, pointing to a narrow channel of blue energy that flowed between 2 unstable zones. "That path is stable, but only for the next 18 hours. If we change course now, we can ride it most of the way to your home system." Princess Lyralii stared at him in amazement. "That current is barely detectable on our instruments. How can you be certain it's stable?" I don't know, but I can feel it like a river flowing through space. It's calm and steady while the others are turbulent." Marcus realized how crazy he sounded, but continued anyway. "The red areas you're avoiding aren't dangerous, just unpredictable. But that yellow zone near the binary star system, we need to stay far away from that. Something's wrong there, something that doesn't belong. The yellow zone registers as completely normal on our sensors." "Your sensors are wrong." Princess Lyralii hesitated for only a moment before beginning to input the course change Marcus had suggested. "I'm trusting your instincts over our most advanced navigation systems. I hope you understand how unprecedented this is. I hope I'm not getting us killed." But as the ship adjusted its course and entered the blue current Marcus had identified, he felt a sense of rightness that resonated in his bones. This was how space travel was supposed to feel, smooth and natural, like flowing downstream rather than fighting against an invisible tide. The Star Whisperer made excellent time through the stable current, crossing distances that should have taken days in a matter of hours. Princess Lyralii monitored their progress with increasing excitement. "We're moving at nearly twice our normal hyperspace velocity, and the energy consumption is actually lower than usual. It's as if the current is carrying us along rather than us having to push through it." Marcus found himself drawn to the bridge, spending hours watching the energy patterns flow past the ship. Gradually, he began to perceive deeper layers of structure in the currents. There were fast streams and slow eddies, convergence points where multiple flows met, and deep channels that seemed to connect distant parts of the galaxy. "It's like a circulatory system," he told Princess Lyralii during their second day of travel. "The deep current doesn't just allow faster-than-light travel. It's what holds the galaxy together on a fundamental level. It carries energy and information between star systems, maintains the balance that keeps everything stable. That matches some of our oldest theoretical models, but we've never been able to prove it." Princess Lyralii activated a recording device. "Can you describe what you're sensing in more detail?" Marcus struggled to find words for concepts that seemed to exist beyond language. "The current flows in cycles like seasons. Right now, we're in a transition period. The old patterns are breaking down, and new ones are trying to form. But something is interfering with the natural process." "What kind of interference?" "I'm not sure. It's like, imagine a river flowing smoothly, and then someone builds a dam partway across it. The water backs up in some places and rushes too fast in others. Eventually, the whole system becomes unstable. Do you have any sense of where this dam might be located?" Marcus closed his eyes and tried to extend his perception as far as possible. For a moment, he felt connected to the vast network of currents that flowed throughout the galaxy. He could sense distant stars and the streams of energy that connected them. And somewhere near the galactic core, there was indeed something wrong, a disruption that sent ripples of instability in all directions. It's in the central region, somewhere around the old core worlds. But it's not natural. Someone built it, and they're using it to control the current flows. Princess Lyraliai's expression grew grim. The Shadow Collective. They must be manipulating the deep current for their own purposes, not realizing, or perhaps not caring, that their actions will eventually destroy interstellar civilization. Can we stop them? Not directly. The core worlds are heavily fortified, and we don't even know exactly where their installation is located. But if we could train you to fully access your navigator abilities, you might be able to find a way to counteract their interference. On their third day of travel, they encountered their first real test. The stable current Marcus had guided them into began to show signs of turbulence. And ahead of them, the energy flows twisted into a chaotic knot that seemed to shift and change with each passing moment. The navigation computer can't plot a safe course through that disturbance, Princess Lyraliai reported. We'll have to drop out of hyperspace and find an alternate route. No, wait. Marcus studied the chaotic region with growing understanding. It's not random. There's a pattern to the chaos, like a whirlpool. If we approach it from the right angle and at the right speed, we can spiral through the outer edge and come out on the other side. That's incredibly dangerous. If we miscalculate, we won't. I can feel the rhythm of it. Trust me. Princess Lyraliai looked at him for a long moment, then began adjusting their course according to his instructions. You realize that if you're wrong, we'll be torn apart by gravitational shears. I'm not wrong, and he wasn't. The ship rode the spiral current like a leaf on a whirlwind, spinning and diving through dimensions of space that normal instruments couldn't even detect. Marcus felt exhilarated as he guided their path. His consciousness somehow extended beyond the ship's hull to feel the currents flowing around them. When they emerged from the disturbance, they found themselves in a calm region of space with ethereal primes, star visible in the distance. Remarkable, Princess Lyraliai breathed. You just navigated us through a Category 5 hyperspace anomaly using only intuition. Our best astropilots wouldn't have attempted that maneuver. Marcus felt drained, but triumphant. For the first time since learning of his heritage, he truly believed he might be capable of the feats Princess Lyraliai expected of him. Ethereal Prime was a world of impossible beauty. From orbit, it appeared to be covered in vast crystal formations that caught and reflected the light of its star in brilliant cascades of color. Cities were barely visible as organic curves that seemed to grow from the planet's surface rather than being imposed upon it. It's beautiful, Marcus said as they descended through the atmosphere. The crystals are not just decorative. They're part of our planet's neural network, a living system that connects all Etherian minds in a form of gentle telepathic communion. Princess Lyraliai gestured toward the sprawling crystal formations below. It's how we maintain the philosophical unity that allows our species to act as galactic mediators. They landed at a spaceport that looked more like a garden than a transportation hub. Etherian officials waited to greet them, their forms graceful and luminous in the alien sunlight. Marcus felt self-conscious in his stained maintenance coveralls among these elegant beings. Do not worry about your appearance, Princess Lyraliai assured him. The Etherians value substance over style. They are more interested in what you can do than how you look. The welcoming committee was led by an elderly Etherian whose skin had a golden tint and whose silver hair flowed like liquid metal. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that seemed to resonate directly in Marcus's mind. I am High Counselor Threlian. Princess Lyraliai has told us of your remarkable heritage, young navigator. The entire council is eager to witness a demonstration of abilities we thought lost forever. I'm still learning, Marcus said. I might not be able to do anything impressive. Modesty is a virtue, but false modesty serves no one. Come, we have prepared a testing facility where you can explore your capabilities safely. They traveled to the council chambers in vehicles that seemed to flow over the crystal roads like water. The chambers themselves were carved from a single enormous crystal, with walls that pulsed with soft light and displayed moving patterns that Marcus somehow found soothing. The testing facility was a spherical room with no visible floor or ceiling, just smooth crystal surfaces that curved around them in all directions. In the center, a holographic display showed a three-dimensional map of local space, complete with current flows and energy patterns. This represents the space around Ethereal Prime in real time, High Counselor Thrillian explained. Can you perceive any details that our instruments might be missing? Marcus approached the display and immediately felt that familiar tingling sensation. But this time, instead of just sensing the currents, he found he could manipulate the holographic representation to show layers of information that weren't normally visible. Here, he said, highlighting a region near the fourth planet in the system. There's a subspace eddy forming. It's small now, but it will grow unstable in about 6 hours and start interfering with communications. The Etherian technicians quickly verified his prediction with their instruments. The eddy was indeed present, though barely detectable even with their most sensitive equipment. Extraordinary, High Counselor Thrillian murmured. You're seeing details at the quantum level of space-time structure. Now, let us try something more challenging. The display changed to show a much larger region of space, encompassing dozens of star systems. The current flows were incredibly complex, with streams braiding together and separating in patterns that seemed almost organic. This is the vegan sector, approximately 300 light-years from here. 2 days ago, a Trade Confederation convoy went missing somewhere in this region. Can you determine what happened to them? Marcus studied the vast display, extending his perception as far as he could reach. At first, the complexity was overwhelming. There were simply too many currents and too much information to process. But gradually, he learned to filter the data, focusing only on anomalies and disturbances. There, he said, pointing to what appeared to be empty space between two minor star systems. Something happened here. The currents are scarred, like they were damaged by something artificial. He manipulated the display to zoom in on the region, and the scarring became more apparent. The normal flow patterns were disrupted in a way that suggested a massive energy discharge. The convoy encountered something they weren't expecting. A ship, maybe, or a weapon platform. Whatever it was, it used technology that tears holes in the deep current itself. Marcus paused, feeling a chill as he realized the implications. The attack wasn't just meant to destroy the convoy. It was designed to damage the current flows and create more instability. High Counselor Thrillian exchanged glances with the other council members present. This confirms our worst fears. The Shadow Collective isn't just benefiting from the deep current's instability, they're actively creating it. But why? If the current collapses completely, they'll be just as isolated as everyone else. Unless they have an alternative method of interstellar travel, Princess Lyralii suggested grimly. If they can move freely while the rest of us are trapped, they could conquer the galaxy piecemeal. Marcus spent the next several hours working with the Etherian scientists, learning to use his abilities more precisely. They discovered that he could not only sense the deep current, but actually influence it to a limited degree. By focusing his will, he could stabilize small disturbances or redirect energy flows around obstacles. This is unprecedented, one of the scientists told High Counselor Thrillian. The ancient text spoke of the lost navigators being able to sense the currents, but they never mentioned the ability to manipulate them directly. Perhaps Marcus represents an evolution of the bloodline, the High Counselor replied. 3 centuries of dormancy may have allowed his abilities to develop in new directions. That evening, Marcus was given quarters in the crystal spire that housed the council chambers. His room had walls that were transparent on one side, offering a view of the planet's crystal formations as they caught, and reflected the light of Ethereal Prime's setting sun. Princess Lyralii joined him on the observation balcony, bringing a meal of foods he didn't recognize, but that tasted surprisingly familiar. "How are you feeling about all of this?" she asked. "Overwhelmed. This morning I was learning to sense the currents, and now I'm apparently manipulating the fundamental structure of space-time. It doesn't seem real. I understand. But you must remember that the fate of trillions of beings may depend on how quickly you can master these abilities. Marcus nodded, though the weight of that responsibility still felt crushing. What happens next? Tomorrow, the full council will meet to discuss our options. Based on what you've shown us today, I believe they will approve a mission to the galactic core to locate and destroy the Shadow Collective's installation. A mission that would presumably include me. You would be essential. No conventional ship could navigate the current distortions around the core worlds, but with your abilities, we might be able to find a safe path. Marcus stared out at the alien landscape, thinking about how much his life had changed. 3 days ago, his biggest concern had been fixing a noisy water recycler. Now, he was contemplating a journey to the most dangerous region of the galaxy to confront an enemy that had remained hidden for centuries. Princess Lyralii, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you risk everything to save me? You barely knew me, but you gave up your diplomatic mission and put yourself in danger. What? She was quiet for a long moment, her violet eyes reflecting the crystal formations in the distance. Because I have seen what happens when hope dies, Marcus. 5 years ago, the Shadow Collective orchestrated a conflict between the hegemony and the Federation that nearly escalated into total war. Billions of beings suffered before we could mediate a peace treaty. But peace was achieved. Yes, but at what cost? Entire worlds were devastated. Families were torn apart. And all of it could have been prevented if we had acted sooner, if we had been willing to take risks for the greater good. Princess Lyralii turned to face him directly. When I realized what you might be, I knew I couldn't let fear or protocol prevent me from acting. If there was even a small chance that your abilities could help save our civilization, I had to try. Marcus felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the alien sun. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for proving worthy of that belief. That night, Marcus dreamed of flowing currents that connected distant stars and of a great web of energy that bound the galaxy together like a living organism. In his dream, he could see the Shadow Collective's installation, a massive artificial construct that pierced the galactic core like a thorn, poisoning the natural flow of the deep current. But he also saw something else. Other installations, hidden throughout the galaxy, all working together as part of a vast network designed to reshape the current flows according to someone's plan. The Shadow Collective wasn't just trying to control interstellar travel. They were attempting to remake the galaxy's fundamental structure. When he woke, Marcus knew their mission would be far more dangerous than anyone realized. They weren't just facing a single enemy installation. They were up against a conspiracy that had been centuries in the making, with resources and capabilities that dwarfed anything the legitimate galactic governments possessed. But they had one advantage the Shadow Collective couldn't have anticipated: a lost navigator whose abilities had evolved beyond anything recorded in the ancient texts. The question was whether that would be enough to save a galaxy on the brink of collapse. As dawn broke over the crystal formations of Ethereal Prime, Marcus prepared himself for the battle ahead. The maintenance worker from mining station Kepler, 442b, was gone forever, replaced by something he didn't yet fully understand but was determined to become. The galaxy's last hope had awakened, and the real test was about to begin. The Etherian Council Chamber was a marvel of living architecture, with walls that pulsed gently like a heartbeat and floors that seemed to flow like crystallized water. Representatives from 12 major galactic species sat in a perfect circle, each delegation occupying a section specifically designed for their physiological needs. Marcus felt distinctly out of place among the assembled dignitaries. The hegemony representatives were tall, silver-skinned beings with 4 arms and analytical eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. The Federation delegates were stocky humanoids covered in natural armor plates that clinked softly when they moved. Trade Confederation officials wore environmental suits that completely concealed their forms, communicating through electronic translators. The situation has deteriorated significantly since we last convened, High Counselor Threlian announced, his harmonious voice carrying clearly throughout the chamber. In the past week, 17 major trade routes have become impassable, and we have lost contact with 43 colonies in the Outer Rim. A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing the galaxy with vast red zones indicating areas of deep current instability. Marcus was shocked to see how much the damage had spread since he had first learned of the crisis. At the current rate of deterioration, continued a hegemony representative, we estimate complete collapse of interstellar infrastructure within 18 standard months. Unacceptable, growled a Federation delegate. Our military forces are already stretched thin trying to maintain communications with our border worlds. If the situation continues to worsen, we may be forced to abandon entire sectors. The Trade Confederation's electronic translator produced a burst of static before conveying their position. Economic projections indicate civilizational regression to pre-spaceflight levels within 2 generations. This outcome must be prevented at all costs. Marcus listened to the debate with growing frustration. Everyone seemed to understand the magnitude of the crisis, but no one was proposing practical solutions. Finally, High Counselor Thrillian called for silence. "We have invited a special guest to address the council today," he announced. Marcus Chun, last known descendant of the Lost Navigator bloodline, has demonstrated abilities that may offer hope for resolving our current crisis. All eyes turned to Marcus, and he felt his mouth go dry. Public speaking had never been his strong suit, and addressing the galaxy's most powerful leaders seemed impossibly daunting. "I'm not much of a speaker," he began, his voice barely carrying across the chamber. "I'm just a maintenance worker who discovered something unusual about his family history. But I've learned some things about the deep current that might be important." He gestured toward the holographic display, and, to his surprise, it responded to his intentions, zooming in on specific regions as he focused on them. "The instability isn't random," Marcus continued, growing more confident as he spoke. "Someone is deliberately disrupting the current flows using artificial installations. I've identified at least 6 major interference points, all coordinated to maximize chaos while maintaining certain protected corridors." The display highlighted the interference points Marcus had detected, revealing a pattern that hadn't been visible before. The protected corridors formed a network that connected several key systems in the galactic core region. "This is extraordinary," breathed the hegemony representative. "Our best analysts have been unable to detect any pattern in the instabilities." "That's because you're looking at the surface effects instead of the underlying cause," Marcus explained. "The Shadow Collective has built a network of installations that can manipulate the deep current directly. They're creating chaos everywhere except in areas they want to control." "The Shadow Collective is a myth," protested a Federation delegate. "A conspiracy theory used to explain away political failures and economic instabilities." Marcus felt a flash of anger. "Tell that to the 300 beings who died when they destroyed mining station Kepler 442b. Tell that to the Trade Confederation convoy that was vaporized in the vegan sector." Princess Lyralii stepped forward. "Council members, I have personally witnessed the Shadow Collective's operatives in action. They are very real, and they represent a threat to every species in this chamber." "Even if we accept the existence of this Shadow Collective," said another hegemony representative, "how do you propose we locate and destroy installations that our most advanced sensors cannot detect?" "That's where my abilities come in," Marcus replied. "I can perceive the deep current in ways your instruments cannot. I can trace the interference back to its sources and potentially guide ships safely through the disturbances to reach them." The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates debated the implications of Marcus's proposal. Some were skeptical of abilities that seemed to defy scientific explanation. Others were desperate enough to try anything that offered hope of stopping the crisis. High Counselor Thrillian called for order. "We propose the formation of a joint task force with representatives from all major powers to investigate these installations and determine the best course of action. Marcus Chun would serve as our navigator, guiding the mission through areas of current instability. "What kind of ships would be needed for such a mission?" asked the Trade Confederation representative. "Something fast and heavily shielded," Marcus said. "The currents near the galactic core are incredibly turbulent, and the Shadow Collective will certainly try to stop us once they realize what we're attempting. The Federation can provide a stealth frigate," offered one of the armored delegates. "The Stellar Phantom is equipped with the most advanced cloaking technology in our fleet. The Hegemony will contribute sensor packages and scientific personnel," added their representative. "And the Etherians will provide diplomatic immunity and Marcus's transportation," concluded High Counselor Thrillian. "Princess Lyrelii will serve as mission commander, given her experience with the Navigator and the Shadow Collective." Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and terror as the details of the mission were hammered out. In 3 days, he would be embarking on a journey to the most dangerous region of the galaxy, with the fate of interstellar civilization hanging in the balance. That evening, he found himself in one of Ethereal Prime's crystal gardens, trying to process everything that had happened. The living crystals sang softly in the wind, their harmonies creating an almost hypnotic peace that helped calm his racing thoughts. "Having second thoughts?" Princess Lyrelii asked, appearing beside him on the garden path. "Third and fourth thoughts," Marcus admitted. "A week ago, my biggest worry was whether I had enough spare parts to fix a broken pump. Now I'm supposedly the key to saving the galaxy. It's a little overwhelming." "I understand the feeling. When I first learned I would inherit my mother's position on the Etherian Council, I spent 3 months hiding in the crystal caves, convinced I wasn't worthy of the responsibility." Marcus looked at her with surprise. "You? But you seem so confident, so sure of yourself." "That confidence came with time and experience. Right now, you're focusing on everything that could go wrong instead of everything you've already accomplished." Princess Lyrelii gestured toward the singing crystals around them. 3 days ago, you had never seen a deep current chart. Today, you read patterns that our most advanced instruments missed. That's not luck, Marcus. That's destiny. What if destiny is wrong? What if I fail and billions of beings suffer because of my incompetence? Then, you will have failed while attempting something worthy, which is more than most beings can claim. Princess Lyrelii's voice was gentle but firm. "But I don't believe you will fail. The Lost Navigators were legendary for a reason, and you carry their legacy in your blood and soul." The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation and training. Marcus worked with Etherian scientists to refine his ability to sense deep current disturbances, while engineers from the various species designed specialized equipment to help him interface with ship navigation systems. The most challenging aspect was learning to maintain his connection to the currents while under the stress of combat or emergency situations. The Etherians created training scenarios that exposed him to jarring sounds, flashing lights, and simulated battle conditions while he tried to navigate through holographic current maps. "Your abilities are strongest when your mind is calm and focused," explained the chief trainer, an ancient Etherian whose crystalline skin had taken on a deep blue hue. "But you must learn to access them even when fear and adrenaline are flooding your system." Marcus practiced for hours, learning to find that inner stillness even when alarms were blaring and emergency lights were flashing around him. Gradually, he discovered that his navigator instincts existed at a level deeper than conscious thought. Even when his rational mind was panicked, some part of him could still feel the flow of cosmic currents. On the second day, representatives from the various species arrived to join the mission. The Federation contingent was led by Commander Sarah Voss, a tough military officer whose cybernetic implants suggested extensive combat experience. "I've read the reports about your abilities," she told Marcus bluntly. "I'll reserve judgment until I see what you can actually do in a real situation." The Hegemony team was headed by Dr. Zeth Ka, a scientist whose 4 arms allowed him to operate multiple instruments simultaneously. His approach was more academic than Commander Voss's, but equally skeptical. The concept of biological navigation sensitivity is theoretically possible, he admitted, but the precision you claim exceeds anything we have previously documented. The Trade Confederation had sent a single representative, a mysterious figure in an environmental suit who identified himself only as Agent Cray. His electronic translator made every statement sound like a business proposition. Confederation interests will be served by successful mission completion. Personal opinions regarding navigator authenticity are irrelevant to operational objectives. Marcus found the mix of personalities challenging, but Princess Laurelii assured him it was typical of multi-species operations. Each group has their own priorities and communication styles, she explained. Your job is to guide the ship safely through the deep current. Let me handle the diplomatic aspects. On the third day, they transferred to the Federation's stealth frigate Stellar Phantom. The ship was built for speed and concealment rather than comfort, with cramped corridors and utilitarian decor that reminded Marcus of his old mining station. Commander Voss gave them a tour of the vessel, highlighting its advanced cloaking systems and defensive capabilities. The Phantom can avoid most forms of detection, but if we're discovered, she can fight her way out of most situations. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Princess Laurelii said. The ship's navigation center had been modified to accommodate Marcus's unique requirements. A specialized interface allowed him to overlay his deep current perceptions onto the ship's sensor displays, creating a hybrid navigation system that combined human intuition with alien technology. This is unprecedented, Dr. Zethka commented as Marcus tested the interface. We are essentially flying blind into the most dangerous region of space, guided by abilities that science cannot adequately explain. Sometimes you have to trust things that can't be measured, Marcus replied, surprising himself with his own confidence. Their first destination was the interference source closest to Ethereal Prime, located in the abandoned Theta Persei system. According to galactic records, the system had been evacuated 50 years earlier when its star began showing signs of instability. Convenient cover story, Commander Voss observed. If everyone thinks the system is uninhabitable, no one will investigate what's really happening there. The journey to Theta Persei took them through increasingly unstable regions of space. Marcus found himself constantly adjusting their course to avoid the worst current disturbances, sometimes making changes that seemed to contradict the ship's instruments. Navigation computer indicates optimal route through Grid 7 Alpha, Dr. Zethkar reported during one course change. The computer's wrong, Marcus said firmly. There's a current shear forming in that sector. If we go through 7 Alpha, we'll be torn apart in 17 minutes. Sensors show no anomalies in that grid. Trust the navigator, Princess Laurelii interjected. His perceptions have been accurate every time. They took Marcus's recommended route through a seemingly empty region of space, and 18 minutes later, their long-range sensors detected a massive spatial distortion exactly where the navigation computer had wanted to send them. I stand corrected, Dr. Zethka admitted. Your ability to predict current formations exceeds our technological capabilities by a significant margin. As they approached the Theta Persei system, Marcus began to sense something deeply wrong with the local space. The deep current here wasn't just unstable, it was actively poisoned, flowing in patterns that felt fundamentally unnatural. There's definitely something artificial in this system, he reported. The current flows are being forced into configurations that shouldn't be possible. It's like someone built a dam across a river, but instead of stopping the flow, they're redirecting it in ways that create maximum turbulence downstream. Can you locate the source? Commander Voss asked. Marcus extended his perception as far as possible, feeling along the twisted current flows until he found their point of origin. Fourth planet, northern polar region. There's a massive installation there, something that extends deep into the planet's core. Sensors confirm artificial structures on the fourth planet, Dr. Zethkar reported. But the configuration is unlike anything in our databases. As they moved closer to the planet, the Shadow Collective installation became visible on their screens. It was enormous, a complex of dark spires that rose from the planet's surface like the legs of some cosmic spider. Energy discharges arced between the spires, and at the center of the complex, a massive beam of distorted space-time extended upward into orbit. By the void, Commander Voss breathed. That thing is punching a hole straight through local space-time. No wonder the deep current is going crazy. The beam appears to be creating artificial wormholes, Dr. Zethka observed. But the exit points are random, explaining the navigational hazards throughout this sector. Agent Cray's translator crackled to life. Installation represents significant technological advancement. Confederation requests detailed scans for potential reverse engineering opportunities. We're here to destroy it, not study it, Marcus said firmly. That installation is slowly poisoning the entire galactic current system. As they descended toward the planet, proximity alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The Shadow Collective had detected their approach. Multiple contacts rising from the planet's surface, Commander Voss reported. They're not showing up clearly on sensors, but I count at least 12 vessels. Marcus could sense the approaching ships through the deep current distortions they created. The Shadow Collective vessels were unlike anything he had encountered before. They seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time, flickering in and out of reality as they moved. They're using the same technology as their installation, he realized. Their ships can phase in and out of the deep current at will. That's how they've remained hidden for so long. Can you track them? Princess Lyralia asked. I think so. Their phase shifts create ripples in the current that I can follow. Marcus focused on the approaching vessels, feeling their alien technology disrupting the natural flow around them. But there's something else. These aren't piloted ships. They're automated, controlled by the main installation. The first attack came without warning. One of the Shadow Collective vessels materialized directly above them, firing weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. The Stellar Phantom's shields held, but barely. Evasive maneuvers, Commander Voss shouted, throwing the ship into a spiraling dive toward the planet's surface. Marcus gripped his interface console, using his connection to the deep current to help predict the enemy ship's movements. Hard starboard in 3 seconds, he called out. One of them is about to phase in directly ahead of us. Commander Voss followed his directions without question, and the ship barely avoided a massive energy discharge that would have vaporized them instantly. The battle that followed was unlike anything Marcus could have imagined. The Shadow Collective ships attacked from multiple dimensions simultaneously, appearing and disappearing like ghosts while firing weapons that defied the laws of physics. But Marcus's abilities gave them a crucial advantage. He could sense the enemy vessels even when they were phased out of normal space, allowing Commander Voss to anticipate their attacks and return fire at the exact moment they materialized. I've got a lock on one of them, the commander reported. Firing. The Stellar Phantom's weapons struck a Shadow Collective vessel just as it was beginning to phase back into normal space. The timing was perfect. The ship was caught between dimensions and tore itself apart under stress. Excellent work, Dr. Zethka commented. But we still have 11 more to deal with. Marcus was about to respond when he sensed something that made his blood run cold. We need to get out of here now. What's wrong? Princess Lyralia asked. The installation, it's powering up for something big. I can feel the energy building in the deep current. Whatever they're about to do, we don't want to be anywhere near here when it happens. But even as he spoke, Marcus realized they were too late. The massive beam at the center of the Shadow Collective installation flared with brilliant light, and the space around them began to twist and warp in ways that hurt to perceive. Hold on to something, Commander Voss yelled, but there was nowhere to run. The artificial wormhole was forming all around them, and the Stellar Phantom was being pulled inexorably toward its center. Marcus felt the ship's hull groaning under stresses that shouldn't have been possible, and he knew that in seconds they would all be scattered across random points in space. Unless he had never attempted anything like what he was about to try. But as the wormhole dragged them toward destruction, Marcus reached out through the deep current and tried to impose his will on the cosmic forces that were tearing them apart. Instead of fighting the wormhole, he embraced it, using his navigator abilities to guide their passage through the twisted space-time. He couldn't control where they were going, but he might be able to ensure they arrived in one piece. The last thing Marcus remembered before losing consciousness was the sensation of falling through infinite darkness while the universe twisted around them like a kaleidoscope of broken stars. When he woke up, the first thing he noticed was silence. No engine hum, no environmental systems, no electronic beeping. The stellar phantom was drifting powerless in an unfamiliar region of space. "Report," he heard Commander Voss say weakly. "Main power is offline," came Dr. Zethka's voice from somewhere in the darkness. "Emergency systems are barely functional. We appear to be intact, but I have no idea where we are." Marcus forced himself to focus on the deep current around them, trying to determine their location. What he sensed made him gasp in astonishment. "We're at the galactic core," he announced. "That wormhole threw us 25,000 light-years across space." "Impossible, Dr. Zetka protested. No known technology could create a stable wormhole across such a distance. The Shadow Collective's technology is beyond anything we've encountered before," Princess Lyralii said grimly. "The question is, are we here by accident, or was this their plan all along?" Marcus extended his perception as far as he could reach, mapping the local space around them. What he discovered chilled him to the bone. "We're not alone," he reported. "There are dozens of installations throughout this region, all connected by artificial current channels. This isn't just one base, it's their entire headquarters complex." "How many ships?" Commander Voss asked. "I don't sense any ships, but that doesn't mean much with their phase technology." Marcus paused as he detected something even more disturbing. There's something else. The installations aren't just manipulating the deep current. They're feeding off it, drawing energy directly from the galaxy's circulatory system. "For what purpose?" Dr. Zethka asked. Marcus tried to trace the flow of energy through the Shadow Collective's network, following channels that led deeper and deeper toward the galactic core itself. When he finally perceived their ultimate destination, he felt sick. "They're not trying to control interstellar travel," he said quietly. "They're trying to drain the galaxy's life force. All of this chaos, all of the current instability, it's just a side effect of their real plan, which is they're preparing to consume the galactic core's energy output and use it to transform themselves, become something beyond physical existence." The implications hit everyone simultaneously. If the Shadow Collective succeeded in draining the galactic core, every star in the galaxy would begin to die. Billions of civilizations would perish, not over decades, but over mere centuries as the cosmic forces that sustained life itself were slowly consumed. "We have to stop them," Princess Lyralii said. "Ow!" Commander Voss asked. "We're one damaged ship against an enemy that's been planning this for centuries." Marcus stared out at the alien stars surrounding them, feeling the weight of impossible responsibility settling on his shoulders once again. But this time, he also felt something else, a deep, burning anger at beings who would sacrifice entire civilizations for their own transformation. The lost navigator bloodline had awakened for a reason, and that reason was becoming clear. His ancestors hadn't disappeared 3 centuries ago. They had been eliminated by the Shadow Collective to prevent anyone from stopping their plan. But they had made one mistake. They hadn't killed them all. "I know how to stop them," Marcus said quietly. "But you're not going to like it. The emergency lighting cast eerie shadows throughout the Stellar Phantom's bridge as Marcus outlined his plan. Power was slowly being restored, but they were still dangerously vulnerable in the heart of Shadow Collective territory." "You want to do what?" Commander Voss asked, her cybernetic eye flickering as she tried to process what Marcus had just proposed. "I want to sever the deep current connections between their installations," Marcus repeated. "If I can disrupt the energy flow they're using to drain the galactic core, their entire network will collapse. The energy levels involved would be astronomical. Dr. Zethkov protested, his four arms gesturing frantically at the holographic displays. Attempting to manipulate currents of that magnitude could tear you apart at the molecular level. It could also tear apart local space-time, Agent Cray's translator added. Confederation insurance policies do not cover extinction-level events. Princess Lyralii studied Marcus's face with her penetrating violet eyes. You believe this is the only way? Look at what we're up against, Marcus said, activating the ship's long-range sensors. The display showed dozens of Shadow Collective installations scattered throughout the galactic core region, each one drawing massive amounts of energy from the deep current. Even if we could destroy one or two bases, they have backups and redundancies throughout the system. But if we can cut the connections between them, the entire network becomes vulnerable. Princess Lyralii finished. Like severing the blood vessels that feed a cancer. Precisely. But there's something else. Marcus manipulated the sensor display to show the energy flows between installations. The Shadow Collective isn't just draining energy from the galactic core. They're pumping something back into it, some kind of exotic matter that's changing the fundamental nature of space in this region. Dr. Zethkov examined the data with growing alarm. These readings are impossible. If their calculations are correct, they're attempting to create an artificial black hole at the galactic center. Not just any black hole, Marcus said grimly. One that they can control and direct. Imagine being able to weaponize the gravitational forces that hold the galaxy together. The implications were staggering. With that kind of power, the Shadow Collective wouldn't just be able to control interstellar travel. They could reshape entire star systems, move planets, even destroy civilizations by manipulating gravity itself. How long do we have? Commander Voss asked. Marcus extended his perception toward the galactic core, feeling the unnatural energies building there like pressure in a cosmic boiler. Based on the current rate of energy accumulation, maybe 72 hours before they reach critical mass. Then, we have no choice, Princess Lyralii said decisively. We attempt Marcus's plan. With what equipment? Dr. Zethkov demanded. To manipulate deep current flows of this magnitude, we would need specialized amplification technology that exists nowhere in the known galaxy. Actually, Marcus said slowly, I think there might be a way. But it would require us to get much closer to the core installations and the risks. He trailed off as proximity alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. On the tactical display, 3 Shadow Collective vessels were materializing around them, their dark hulls seeming to absorb rather than reflect light. They found us, Commander Voss said, her hands flying over the weapon controls. All hands battle stations. But instead of attacking immediately, the Shadow Collective ships held their positions, forming a perfect triangle around the Stellar Phantom. A communication signal pierced through their shields, carrying a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Navigator, the voice said, and Marcus felt ice in his veins at the way it spoke his title. We have been waiting for you. Who are you? Marcus demanded, though part of him already suspected the answer. We are what your ancestors should have become, had they possessed the wisdom to embrace transformation rather than cling to obsolete flesh. The voice carried harmonics that hurt to hear, as if it was being transmitted through dimensions that human minds weren't designed to perceive. You carry the last pure Navigator bloodline, Marcus Chun. With your abilities added to our network, the final phase of our evolution can begin. I'd rather die first. Death is an illusion, Navigator. We offer something far greater, transcendence beyond the limitations of physical existence. Join us willingly, and we will allow your companions to witness the birth of a new cosmic order. Resist, and they will be consumed. To emphasize the threat, one of the Shadow Collective vessels fired a brief burst from its reality-warping weapons. The energy beam passed harmlessly beside the Stellar Phantom, but where it struck empty space, matter simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed or vaporized, simply erased from reality as if it had never been. You have 1 hour to decide, the voice concluded, and the communication channel closed. Commander Voss immediately began plotting escape routes, but Marcus could see from the sensor readings that it was hopeless. The Shadow Collective ships could phase in and out of normal space at will, and their weapons could apparently delete matter from existence itself. There has to be another option, Princess Lyralii said desperately. Maybe there is, Marcus said, studying the energy.